Hello, Bruno.
Hi.
Excited to chat with you. So you were mentioning just a minute ago that you are getting into effects pretty new, but you've been doing this at work now. I know in the note that you sent, you mentioned 2D effects as your starting point.
Yes.
And now we've got let's see. Yeah, we've got your demo reel here ready to go. So
might have some sounds there. So
what's that?
Might have some music there. So if I don't know if it's loud or not. So just
oh yeah, I've got the sound down, so we should be good there. That's good to know. Super cool intro. I love it. This is rad stuff. Oh, interesting. Now I want to know what the story is of these like primitive people.
It was a short film that I did with in my latest studio that I worked with, and that's myself. And I got in charge for all the effects in the film, and we were actually expecting to make as you know, After Effects kind of ready things like particles and fractals and stuff like this. But I asked if I could try to actually train my 2D skills and try to traditionally animate it like frame by frame. And then the director said, yeah, I'll go for it. And it worked. So after that, they even put me on the opening of a series that we were doing. If you see those effects in the black screen, those are from a series that I couldn't actually, show to in my portfolio yet.
Sure.
The series is out now, so we can actually see the open. I can look for it.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see that.
And then I just got a taste for it. I just started to apply to everything I did. So I started to explore a little bit better in traditional animation because it's super fun.
Very cool, man. I think you're well on your way. You've got a real knack for this. I think there's a lot of refinement to do just to get you up and moving with some of these. I guess I'll just dive in. Let's check out. I'm curious to see the Instagram too, to get like more of a rounded view of what you're up to. Okay.
Yeah, the Instagram I did just to post like some quicker stuff. It's something that you won't actually build a reel around it, but
right. No, but it gives me a good idea of your skills and interests. Well, that's super cool. So are you doing this character animation?
Yeah, that's a character I downloaded it. Both of them. So they come already fully rigged and stuff. I just created the scene.
That's really nice.
I guess that would be my main. What I studied the most for.
A doctor who specializes in skin diseases will dream he has fallen asleep.
Yeah, and I started in the VFX part just by accident, and I really liked it. So I think it's very nice for me too. This is part of the games that I'm working in lately.
So you're currently working in games, and you're really enjoying it. What kinds of things are you finding most exciting, or do you have an idea of your dream job, something you'd really like to dive into?
My dream job at one point was to actually work with movies, make like Pixar films and all those, feature films with character animations and actings and stuff like that. But once I started to actually make action scenes like that to games, at least towards games, I really found myself. I think I really like the body mechanics of it. I really like to make like expression, dynamic scenes with really extreme poses and stuff like this, and I'm probably not going to get that in acting. Acting is more in the details of in the nuance of animations and small movements and stuff like that, and I really like those stuff. I like to make action stuff, and I think games are more towards that direction. And after I started with VFX, I would really wanted to actually and even to increment my scenes, to make character animation more exciting, because then I can actually animate the effects on top of it.
Right. Yeah, I think your intuition is correct that generally, and obviously there's exceptions to this, you do more full body action in video games, but then you do more subtle acting in film. There's clear examples where you do one and the other, right? Like there are times in film where you do have an action sequence and you do need to play it all out. The difference being that you're playing to the camera and the composition for that action, versus in a video game, the action needs to look good from a variety of angles and zoomed out, typically quite a bit further. And so it really comes down to what you enjoy more. If you like, getting the composition just right and then getting the character to play nicely to the camera, versus you want to just, go all in on some full body stuff, etc. That'll be good. I really like your... Oh, sorry, you go ahead. First.
No, it's just the thing. I mean, I enjoyed both of that types of animation.
Sure.
And I really like the part of composition. I really like the thing where you actually set the camera to give the most strength to your scene. But
sure,
I've been enjoying to make body mechanics and dynamic actions with like a bird view type of camera or something far away, and I've been having a lot of fun. Most of my scenes are revolving on that.
Well, my intuition tells me that with your current skill set, I mean, obviously you already have work. And so your work is great, and it gets you to a place where you are very employable at a variety of studios already. And my thinking is, if you're going to continue with doing character and effects animation combined, that you're going to find yourself fitting really nicely with teams that are small and that need one person to do more than one thing, right? Because of their size. And so this can happen both at small studios and big studios. So at Riot Games, we have like these incubator teams, right? These little R&D teams. And I know they have them at Blizzard as well. And they're smaller teams, and they're just working on prototypes, and they're figuring out, is this a game that we want to send into a bigger team, into a fuller production? But in the earlier days of that, you'll be like wearing all these different hats and trying stuff out, because the scope that you're working with is just a vertical slice of the game. It's not the whole game. It's just like kind of one of everything, and just to see if it's viable and good. And so in those situations, skill set like yours is super valuable and highly sought after. So you're very much... strong points are on like sort of timing and silhouette. You've got really nice things going on. Some of your work, I feel like it must just be older, and maybe you can just tell me this, because I'm seeing some work in here that the timing isn't as strong. Like for instance, on this intro, when the lightning dissolves, it kind of doesn't have a clear beat to it. Like it kind of just all dissolves. There's some slight overlap, but there's so many different shapes happening that I don't get a sense for like where the primary focal point is. Like this area over here is a little more prominent, but then also these lines in here are similar thickness in the square. And so it's not quite drawing the eye through from left to right, because also it's growing from the middle. And it's a motion challenge, and it's a timing challenge that you might be able to fix keeping the same elements. I think also it's just tricky because so many little shapes are moving at similar times next to each other. And so it's hard for any one of those shapes to sort of breathe. And it's a very complex shot, which I admire, all of the detail that goes into this. But I feel like it could use a whole refinement pass. And I know it's just like an abstract piece just for your logo, which is great. I love this first part. I will say that, like, I love this first part, this like little zipping around, and that level of detail is appropriate for its size. Those little crispy bits that are flicking off and stuff like that. It's just really nice and really satisfying. And I love how it's timed and comes in. And then the square growing, the motion graphics sort of element of the squares coming out feels really satisfying too. It's like it shows a different kind of skill set in the space of more technical animation and, say, After Effects, or is that done in Flash or After Effects? The way that that's growing in?
After Effects.
Yeah, like that's a really nice element, the way that it comes in. I just feel like it almost needs a beat, just like a slightly longer amount of time before the big swipe hits through it. Mm-hmm. Like the timing there, it needs to like satisfy its resolve, and then it comes through. Right now it's like starting to resolve, and then it just gets cut off too early. And so my brain is like, what's going on? It's a little bit of an assault on the senses. And you do want to assault the senses, but you don't want to like disorient the senses, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, totally.
And then this swipe crashing from side to side, I like it. I feel like it has a level of detail challenges. And I do the same thing where, so if you look at this here coming through, this is a certain frequency of shape, right? Like it's nice and bold and pretty simple. And then you cut to where it's resolving. And there's so many teeny tiny details, especially on this main piece that comes through the center. It gets like really, really, really detailed and noodly. And I think that, going from those big bold shapes to those really, really detailed squiggly shapes is hurting the composition, and it's throwing off the scale of it all. Because it's like, wait, is it simple shapes and like a dynamic style, or is it super high detail style? And is this something that we're looking at from far away? That's the other thing, is if it is something that is zoomed way out and you want all that detail because it's this epic scope of this massive thing that happened, then it needs to move a lot slower, right? And have some gravity to it. Because as you zoom out the camera, the perception is that everything's moving slower in that effect, right? And so more detail equals slower movement. Or less detail, you can get away with faster movement because it feels more zoomed in and like it's flying by the camera very quickly. You with me so far? All right.
I have this kind of addiction of I don't know. I think I want to evidence, put in evidence the follow through so much that I actually make a trail for everything for too long, maybe. And it's something that I've been working on to get away from a little bit. This beginning for the Rio. It's something that I have for I don't know, 5 years maybe.
So I think that's your strength too. I wouldn't crush it necessarily, because I think that as a character animator coming into effects, you are a very rare commodity. Like, so many effects artists really struggle with timing and follow through and all those principles that you have really mastered. So I wouldn't throw it out completely. I think follow through is really important and it's very valuable to keep. I just think you need to check your follow through frames against your first frames to make sure that the shape language is in the same neighborhood. Does that make sense? Like, the timing is great. I think it's just that the shapes are getting too detailed and too tiny. Like, I love that you have this zap that's like coming off of here, from this thing. It's just that you look at the level of detail in this zap and then even the level of detail in the logo itself, and there's a mismatch there. the two aren't quite working together. And you don't have to make it a lot thicker, like this line here, and then, you know, these top lines, they are thin, you know, but right here it's like it's getting so thin that it's lost, but also it's just got so many little squiggles, little squiggles, you know. And that's where I'm having trouble, is the amount of shape changes and direction changes in your tiny shapes. So yes, that is what I would say about that. It's a really cool effect, though. I honestly think a lot of it is very usable. You just have to refine it at this point. And, you know, if you were to go into this and clean up these shapes, which are pretty roughly laid in, which I totally understand saves you a ton of time to just leave it like this and then move on. But if you were to actually go in and do a cleanup pass, which is probably going to take you just as long as the initial animation took overall, but like it would just take the fidelity and the quality to a next level, and it would just feel so slick and so nice. Like if you took this frame, for instance, and just stylized this frame to be clean and to fit with the same kind of vibe that you get from the center square and the logo at the end, and then you kind of animated forward and backwards from that thing, cleaning up forward and backwards, you might end up with something really slick, actually. And you might also think about flow. Like this is, you know, think of posing in animation and how, you know, it's if you have an arm moving, it's, you know, you don't want it to be like this sliding sideways. You want just bending it, and it creates a nice flow as it's like moving in that direction. And the same thing goes here, where, you know, you've got some sort of right angles as it's cresting around this tip. This shape here is kind of blunt. You know, it doesn't feel like it's zooming around that. And there's a lot of right angles going on in general. Like there's a right angle here, there's a right angle here. These are very chunky, squarish sorts of angles here. And it kind of fights against the feeling of it flowing. I think you've got a much better flow up here, like this area especially, where and then it kind of like curves back and like it's kind of like you didn't know what to do, so it kind of curves and then wobbles a little. I think working out the flow would be valuable in a few areas. Here, this feels kind of nice that you've got like parallel lines going. It makes it feel nice and fast because it is the fastest element. It's just shooting straight across. And it's not to say that everything needs to feel fast. Like I think this is great here. You know, this kind of shape making you've got here is nice because it has a nice relationship to sort of the upward curve of it all, but then it also has this nice negative shape in here. I like how it's arcing up off. It feels really good. It's just, you have like 3 different shape languages in the 3 different bolts, you know? So kind of consolidating that and massaging those shapes. In the class, we have like, you know, in the opening lecture, we talk about shape language and shape dynamics and how to get that. And so I'd recommend taking a look at that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so there's one effect. I like this. I think this one could just use better timing, honestly. So like the waterfall here is breaking off, and it's just kind of like very evenly, these shapes are just moving a very even timing off the bottom of it. But you think about it, like they would move really quickly at first and then slow way down as they lose momentum.
The same is the same speed. All the cycles in it. And yeah, I guess it was. I mean, it's supposed to be a cycle, and when you're doing a cycle, you kind of crack your head a few times until you actually get it right, and not feel like a jump when the cycle begins again.
Yeah, so that's really it, right? Is you have to keep multiple things in mind, like both how are the shapes going to connect as the cycle loops, but then also how are you going to still infuse good timing into there. And that's a tricky balance to do for sure. It's kind of interesting. Yeah, I feel like some of these have that issue with the cycle where I can kind of see where the cycle hooks up. The trick I like to do, because like it'll go and then it kind of like, it like goes, it wobbles the wrong way and then comes back in again. Something I'll do to fix that is I'll actually go in and offset my frames. So I'll take it, if it's a cycle that's like 16 frames, I'll offset frame 1 over to frame 8 and then chop off those last 8 and put them back at the beginning. And so now I'm seeing the cycle, I'm seeing through that choppy part that I have, and it'll allow me to like smooth it out a lot easier. I do that every time I do a cycle because I always have that little like that weird, either the timing gets weird or it like jumps somehow.
It kind of rushes to get into the.
Yeah,
it's like the smoke knows that oh shit, like it's about to start again, and then it just rushes to actually get to the point that it needs.
So I'd recommend revisiting that. It would be really good. Yeah, I mean, some really good shapes though. Like, I think you've done something really nice with like the flat silhouette, but then, you've got one side moving a little quicker than the other side. So like here you've got the right side kind of like speeding up a little faster, and then the air currents on the left side are maybe a little slower. And that creates a nice variation. It's really good. I think the in-betweens are a bit wobbly as well.
Yeah, I guess that's because I usually animate those in Photoshop. Photoshop doesn't really have the trace correction.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I feel your pain.
Yeah.
That's just a lot of like noodly stuff to get it. This car thing is really cool. Is that a commercial you did?
Was actually a study for a commercial. I mean, they wanted to make something with more, with this type of effects, like a storyboard that paints itself for each next scene. So I made this for them, and it kind of course, took a lot of time to actually make this work. So they didn't think was worth it to actually spend the hours and how much it was going to cost for the whole thing, because it was going to be like a 15-second ad. So I just stayed with the one scene.
So I feel like I love the timing of everything except for the red icon above it, because it doesn't have that satisfying follow through that everything else has. Everything else takes its time to kind of resolve and sort of, flop into place. But that thing on the top, it just kind of, it's there. Yeah. And I wish you had just done something, maybe like a little wobble follow through when it's done, or like maybe those last few bits take just a little bit more time to fall in. Something along those lines, I think would have been really nice.
Yeah, I agree. But that thing is first I had this time to actually make the scene work, so it would cut kind of sooner.
I see.
Still, I understand completely what you said, and I agree. I was actually thinking, since this was going to be like a 3D thing that was going to like a solid thing, I didn't put in the same language of the rest of the scene, which was a terrible decision, but it was just thinking after this the camera would just go away and we'll have the smaller in the scene with just that red thing that wouldn't really change size. So it would be something separate during the whole commercial. That was the idea, at least. Mm-hmm. But I'm completely with you. It doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the scene. So.
It looks like you've also got a missing frame on the yellow. The yellow flickers.
Okay.
If I can, oops.
Yeah, Vemo's not that good with the.
There, it flickered off and on. See, it like goes away and then it comes back. Sorry, I can't help but see these things.
That's
Anyway. I was like, something's wrong with the yellow. It's jumping. Okay. Anyway. I really like this. I think this is fine. I think this is great. Just like the guy doing his thing. You could clean it up in its current version and it would look really good.
Yeah.
Great timing. Great follow through.
I can work better in the poses, I guess. It's kind of stiff.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't speak much to the character animation. I think the character animation is good. It could probably be better, but I think the effects are really nice, for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's when I started to mix the effects that I kind of learned during that short film and the series thing, to actually apply it to my character animations. Because when you have like a smear frame or you wanted to put the speed of it or to give it more power, that thing really helped. I mean, I didn't have to animate. I didn't have to animate something in the middle of the movement, so you don't really see how the movement is. You just see the before and the afterwards, and the effects do all the job. So it's that was actually a really nice exercise too.
Well, very cool. Yeah, it's a nice piece too. I think it's doing a good job. Let's see, which ones did you want to go into more? Were there any that you're just like, I really was hoping to get feedback on this or that?
I guess because those are the ones that I told you about the
Oh, they're from an actual show.
Opening and the series and stuff like this. And here I can see exactly what you were telling me about in the beginning. I mean the irregular shapes, the big chunky pieces that goes into smaller parts that actually makes you lose focus on what the movement should be, and you kind of don't have a place for the eye to follow. So like you don't have a focus. And I agree with all of that. And I actually would like to know how I mean, a little bit about your story in those things. I mean, how where do you usually start with or to do those things? Because that's mainly my issue for those.
Yeah. So my sense is that you are doing this straight ahead, that you're starting from frame one and you're just animating straight ahead. I was taught by Ryan Woodward, and he is very heavily shape oriented. And so he will do a concept piece of kind of his style target that he's going for. And I call it the hero frame. It's like the frame that's most memorable in that whole sequence. So maybe it's at the climactic point, maybe it's during the resolution, but it's the frame that you want to stick in the mind of the viewer. And then you animate forward and backwards from it. Now, in the process of creating those other frames before it and after it, you might find that there's something in the hero frame that isn't working, that needs to be changed, and that's okay. So it's okay to modify that frame later for the sake of getting fluid animation and to get it to track properly. The key is that it just gives you a starting point of what your target is. Because like when I pause this frame here, I don't know what direction it's moving. I don't quite know what it's made out of. I don't know a lot of things because it's just pure motion. And so I think having that balance of a clear shape that drives the story of what's happening, but then also good motion that's very satisfying and describes the sort of energy of what's happening, those need to combine together. And so either you need to, if you're going to just do straight ahead, you need to have a very clear idea in your mind of that shape language, and maybe have like an inspirational piece of the sort of shape language that you want up on another screen or something, so that you know the sorts of shapes you want to create as you do straight ahead. Or you can just do it the very fixed way of saying, I'm aiming for this frame, animate backwards from that frame, animate forwards from that frame, and that's what I'll do. And then, of course, there's the method of kind of a blend of the two, which is keyframes, right? So you just do your keyframes that sell the different shapes at the different phases, and kind of you can see how they might sync up with each other, but obviously with effects, it's more abstract. So certain portions are going to actually dissolve away and new ones will come in. The risk with doing keyframes is that you get just boring motion. You get like this shape turns into this shape and it just tracks over into it, instead of like this one eats away and then this one jets out or whatever. The challenge with keyframing it all out is to remember, don't just turn your brain off and then simply in between this shape and this shape, do some interesting motion that makes this shape snap into that shape, right? And I'm sure you know in your head instances where this would apply. So yeah, I think figuring out for yourself which process is going to pull your work into the direction that you want it to go is going to be a journey. Yeah.
I get it. It's that was the way I started. I started just going frame by frame because it was mainly following an animation that was already there, like a character that was already animated. So I had to do his, the elements, the electricity, the smoke or whatever to follow his movements. So I just figured that I should do frame by frame, and of course not. Now I mean what you said makes perfect sense. I mean, I should take the actual keyframe of the hero pose in the character and start from there, and to make like that to a nice effect that would stick to whoever watches it.
Right. And you might be able to take that character animation and put it on choppy keyframes, and then put your choppy keyframes over it so that you can kind of go back to, because I know it's weird when you have choppy effects on top of a smooth character animation. That feels really weird. So sometimes if I can, I like to go and just get the keyframes of the character and then put over the keyframes of the effects on top of it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think you're going to do really good stuff on your next iteration on all this stuff. And so,
I was about to start a new reel, but I decided to wait until I finish your course first.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to see what you can do with 3D too. The 3D aspects of it and stuff. Like, I think you've got a mind that can definitely embrace the 3D components. You know, you've done some technical animation in After Effects and stuff like that. I think you're going to like it. And it just adds more power to.
I'm super excited with it.
Yeah, adds more power, and you're more dangerous, and you can do more. And so, yeah, if you want to work in games, if you want to work in TV or film, I think the options are open to you. Honestly, it seems like you could make your way in any of the above. Yeah, dude, good stuff. Any final questions for me?
Well, I guess you covered it all. I mean, it's. I was going to ask where you think I should invest my strengths into, but you just said it, and that's pretty much what I want to do. I mean, I want to evolve in as many different abilities I can within the animations. I mean, I'm a really bad sculptor and all the rest of the 3D parts, but I want to be I want to master every type of animation that I can. So it's not just because I need to work with games, but because I love it. It's a really, I mean,
Right.
it's I actually come from a family of animators, so it's in my blood actually.
That's cool.
Yeah, my father and grandfather my grandfather was an animator back in the '60s in Brazil.
Oh wow.
And my father still is. So it's. I mean, I grew up with that stuff, and
Right.
I always wanted to do. I mean, new stuff with it. I always want to learn a new technique, and I really enjoyed your animation. I mean, when I started to do VFX, I actually followed your tutorials. Not tutorial. Your reel was like my main reference to it, because of the timing of it, the whole way it's composed. It was really what I wanted to get to, and
Well, cool.
then it just evolved from there. It's like a whole new world that I'm exploring with.
That's awesome to hear, man. It really warms my heart to hear that, because I mean, you've really developed something that is very strong, and I can tell that your growth trajectory is really nice. Like, because some of these pieces, it's like obviously you were doing it for one of the first times ever, but then the piece next to it, it's like, nope, I learned how to do it better now, and you've applied that knowledge. And honestly, just keep that going for as long as you can, because earlier on in your career, how many years are you into this?
With the VFX stuff, I guess a couple of years actually going all in it. I've mainly been working with effects this past 2 years.
If you can establish that pattern earlier on in your career of like, I'm not afraid to just learn what I need to learn, then that will carry as you become more of a senior artist and more seasoned, then you'll still be willing to keep learning and growing. I think the danger can be, I'm good at this thing, so I'm just going to do that and stick with what I know. And those kind of artists really run into trouble later on in their careers, because their style or their sensibility goes out of style, and they need to learn something new, and they have trouble with that. So I think it's great that you're on this trajectory of learning, and that you're like, yeah, I'll learn a game engine in 3D. It sounds great. And you're just diving into it. And I'm just going to be amazed at where you go with it. Like, once you start learning about how to do materials stuff, you'll be like, I can animate a material. This is so cool. And like playing around with the dissolves and, multiplying different textures together and just seeing what that can get you, animating inside of a particle system. You're going to love it. It's just so good. So,
yeah, I can't wait.
And a lot of the real-time techniques are used in television these days. And
because they're quite evolved right now, right?
Yeah, like depending on the studio, they might be super open to, you can do that effect with real-time? Sure. Okay, however you do it, just go for it. I know some studios are very locked down on their process, but others it's like, you're going to map a dissolve to a mesh, and that's the 2D animation in the end. Okay, as long as it matches our style, we're fine, right? And you can go for that. And it's just like a fraction of the time as it would have taken to do it frame by frame. So you can end up being really valuable to the studio you're at, depending on their pipeline and workflow, obviously. That's the caveat. But I think more and more are very open to blending 2D and 3D methods and stuff. So it's cool stuff, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, have yourself
20 minutes over.
Yeah, we went over. So sorry that it started late, but we made up for it.
That's okay. I didn't even see.
Yep.
Time goes.
Okay, man. We'll catch you later.
Great, man. Thanks for all the advice. I can't wait to take the course.
Yes. Good luck in there, Bruno.
Thank you.